Our next speaker is Joselene Marques, and Joselene is Head of Data Science with Infomedia, and she will tell us how Infomedia uses AI to identify positive and negative coverage on companies in the news flow.
It's very important to know how they have been mentioned in the media. And NLP can help to find the relevant articles and also to identify the tone of these articles. I have been working with AI since 2010, and since 2019, I'm focusing on NLP at Infomedia. Infomedia is a leading company that extracts articles from the media sources and enrich this article with extra information. This extra information, we call it metadata. It can be readership, for example, and also tone. So we have tone assessment in Infomedia for quite some time. But this assessment is done manually so far. And this is time-consuming, and also only some customers can have access to this feature. So we started to think about it and see how we can actually reach all our customers with this feature and automate this assessment. So we look at the business case, and the key outcome would be a feature that could be automate the assessment of the tone. And we could use this feature in our platform. So all the customers that have access to our platform could have access to this feature. And it would be also nice if we could support the manual assessment of the tone that is done in the company. We then gather the requirements with our experts. They have been doing for quite some years. And the first, it would be to do this assessment using the full article. Most of the research and the industry uses sentiment analysis for sentences, but here we need to consider the full article. So this was our first challenge in this business case. We also needed to assess 3 categories. This is what most of our customers would like to have. And we would need to provide 2 types of assessment. One for the general article, so focusing in the main point of the article, and the other one is entity-based assessment. So we needed to focus in the entity mentioned in the article. And I'm going to explain what I mean by entity-based by showing one example of an article. So here I have an article that is mentioning Facebook, for example, and it's also mentioning Donald Trump. So the first step is to identify which parts of the article is talking about Donald Trump. So we look for the Donald Trump entity in the various forms that can appear, like the full name or part of the name, or some co-references like the former president or also a pronoun. And then select from this text what is related to Donald Trump to give the assessment. Another point in the training of the model is actually to have some data as example. We actually had many, but our customers had a guideline to tell us how they would like to have this assessment of positive and negative and neutral done in the articles. And each customer had one guideline. So we needed to find a way to have one simple model, and then we decided to simplify the guideline and focus in the most general part of the assessment. Some of our customers, for example, specified if the article is about an investment, then the article should be assessed as positive. Some other customers think that this is neutral. We also had to look into the relationship between the entities. For example, if we have one article that appears the name of the company and also a product of the company, we need to identify how this relation is presented in the article. If it is a recall, for example, of a product that is with defect, if the company is the one producing the product, then the assessment would be negative. But if the company is just a retailer, then would be neutral. So at this point of the business case, we had to actually align the expectation. So we decided to postpone this edge case for a next version and focus in what most of our customers agree in terms of positive and negative. So we use this new guideline to actually train a new data set. We asked to assess around 10,000 articles following these guidelines. And these articles include 3 languages, Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish. And we use this data to train our model. The final model now is available in our platform as a new feature that does this assessment automatically. We use the data set, and this has been labeled following a sequence from -2 to 2, where -2 is negative and 2 is the positive. We use this data to train the model to train a regression model. And we did that to keep the relation between the order of the labels. So now I'm going to show an example of our pipeline that shows how we assess the article when we give as an input the article and an entity. Here I have the same article that I have showed before. Let's consider that we're going to do the assessment with relation to Donald Trump. So we select the part of the text that is relevant for this entity. We give these sentences to our model that is trained. We use a BERT model for this training. BERT is a language model that's quite used in the industry. We train this model, and this model is going to give a score. And afterwards, we use a classification threshold to give the 3 classes, either positive, negative, or neutral. So if you look at the whole pipeline, we can give as input the article and an entity if we want the assessment with regards to a specific entity, or we can give only the article, so then we're going to get the assessment with relation to the general point of the article. We did try other approach, and here I'm being a little bit more technical just to mention what we have been trying during this time. We tried sentence-based, which is most used in the industry, and it worked well for sentences and short text. But when we needed to combine these tones in one assessment, then it was hard, and our approach had a better performance. So we are not using a sentence-based assessment in this model. We also hear some suggestion to train in one architecture the part that filters the article and do the assessment of the article in one deep learning architecture. And we would need much more data to actually use this approach. So we didn't try that. We also tried one approach that gives as input to the BERT model the article and also the entity to learn together to find out what is the tone. And this approach, it was a bit intriguing and led us to some bias. So we also parked this for now, and we need a little bit more research on that. Regarding the entity recognition, this is the most tricky part, because when we started our project, we thought if we just identify the entities would be enough. And soon we realized we also need to include the co-references of our entity in our analysis. But now we actually see that it's very important to identify the relations between the entities in the article. So as I mentioned before, we have some relation between the name of the company and some products, and also it could be a relation between the company and a person mentioned in the article. So we needed to consider the relation of the entities to first identify what is relevant in the article and then give the assessment. So as you can see, it's a bit more complicated to assess a full article than assess one sentence. I actually have been once asked for a student that came to me, why are you taking so long time to do this project? I have done this one weekend. Yeah, it requires a bit more. And if you have any question, I would like to discuss in the bar.